And so I came up with this idea, the Dirty Dozen. I lived in Colorado for many years, and I had that idea years before because I knew that there's all these amazing mountain passes. So I thought to myself, well, let me do the research. If I can find 12 mountain passes that are all over 12,000 feet and all off-road, and I had no idea the skill level that I would need in order to do them, we could end up pulling that together and make something so we get up to the top there. And it's just breathtaking. And it's moments like this that when you get out there, especially in adventure riding, where you realize that you're experiencing something quite unique and quite special, that this motorcycle is a tool and it's enabling you to do it, and enabling you to do it in a spirited way where you're gonna have stories to tell your friends. We thought to ourselves, if we're gonna do something cool like this, like we want to inspire other people to take off and to take on this challenge themselves and on social media. And so immediately when I started following the Dirty Dozen hashtag, I'm like, oh, hey, you guys are doing it. And chatting with them along the way as they're accomplishing this. And so the first thing I'd like to do is present them their Dirty Dozen badge, which is actually, I've heard some comments about, how long do we have to wait for Ducati to make a sticker? And the fact is that our team made it a point that this was not going to be a sticker, but it's one of those things that you get to put on your bike wherever you feel appropriate. It might go in your toolbox, it might go in the back of your truck, but something that actually shows a pride that you're the only two, the first two I should say, that actually accomplished and completed this. So, that being said, here is your Dirty Dozen badge, each one of you guys. And there you go. Have a little bit of weight to it, some help.
You can hurt somebody with this.
That's the idea. I mean, it's probably going to add a couple pounds to the bike, so it wasn't actually intended to be lean. But the idea here is that when you see somebody that actually has this badge, this is a badge of honor that they've earned. And it's actually part of something that we're going to be doing consistently. Every couple years or so, we're going to create a new challenge. In fact, Cory and I spent some time, Spencer and I spent some time talking a couple months ago about a challenge that I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And so we're not giving it away yet, but the idea is that we're going to go do it together now, this next challenge, to create it something, because part of when you do this, it's passing the torch on to new people to be able to take this on. And you can see here, actually, just real quick, this image is Jamie when we turned around and we decided we couldn't go any further on one of the passes that we abandoned. That's the one that I had mentioned, the Napoleon that kicked our ass and we just had to give up. But that being said, I'm going to jump into also their images as well, because there are some pretty amazing images that they took along the way. And how you achieve this is that each one of them, they have to, when they stop at the top of the pass, they have to document they were there. It's been there, done that. And the best way you do that is you do that with the sign of each one of these as well. And you can see each one of these passes, and I'm not sure if I actually put them in the correct order, but that shows them when they hit each one of these passes. Cottonwood was a bonus, that's actually asphalt, but it's a kick-ass asphalt bit. And the stories that they've told, in fact, which I also spent time watching their videos, and they took a lot of time to document all of this. And I don't mean just with GoPros and cell phones, but they had drones and everything, and you'll see some of the video footage, which helped to create the stories. So if you haven't had an opportunity, go search for the videos on YouTube, because Cory put a lot of time into putting these things together to tell the story as well. But I actually have a couple questions, because I wanted to be able to use this as an opportunity to be able to talk to you guys a little bit about the challenge itself. And the first question I have that both of you can answer, whether it's independent or not, but what is it that inspired you or made you decide that you wanted to take something like this on?
Well, Cory and I both like challenges, and we were just motivated to be the first ones to do it. We didn't think we'd be the only ones to do it, but Cory was the first person I thought of, and it was just like, let's go. And he was like, we'll go, we'll do it.
Yeah, I think he said, Hey, did you see the Ducati Dirty Dozen thing? And I said, yeah, I did. He said, you want to do it? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I did. What are you talking about? It wasn't even a question. It was just, we're going to do it.
Yeah. So,
Out of all of these passes that you did, now I should actually also mention that out of the dozen passes, you hit some, let's say, surprises. Tell me, what is one of the things that you actually stumbled across that you didn't expect along the way?
I didn't expect to fully submerge my bike in a river crossing. That was a surprise.
and you get it running afterward.
And I got it running afterwards, yeah. And that was actually day 2. And we were off doing a bonus pass that we were doing Schofield, which wasn't even part of it. And so the first thing I thought was, oh great, the trip's over. And we didn't even finish the other things, and we were off here dicking around doing something dumb. And yeah, so that was surprising.
Yeah, Black Bear Pass was closed because of unstable bank. I
Big
think it was landslide. So we were hoping when we got there that it would be open, and unfortunately we got stopped a couple hundred yards from the top. So we went to do Schofield as a fill-in. But yeah, so wasn't expecting that. But yeah, I don't know. Everything else seemed to go to plan.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Well, so the Schofield Pass,
Just so everybody knows that there was a pass and it didn't fit the criteria of the elevation, but in terms of intensity, it by far more than made up for it. And the reality is that it's noted as the most deadly pass in Colorado. And part of it has to do with the fact, and you'll see potentially here actually some of the video that we'll end up playing. The pass itself, there's a section of it called Devil's Punch Bowl, I think is that correct? And it's just basically shale that's on an angle, and if you don't hit that right, there's people that roll their vehicles into that thing all the time. Supposedly some people have passed away in there, but in most cases somebody just falls, and there's a couple videos of people falling on motorcycles as well. These guys, and I've tried taking that pass and I've just been like, no, I tapped out. I'm not gonna do it. And there's videos, I think you did it like 2 or 3 times because you had to go back actually after you left your sunglasses up there or something ridiculous.
We couldn't have anybody say that we didn't do it the hard way. Everybody's like, well, you rode it the easy way though. So Cory was like, no, we gotta do it both ways. We'll go down and then we'll come back up. And then he forgot his sunglasses, then he got to go down and come back up.
Well, how do you guys prepare for something like this? Because talking to a couple people in the room tonight, I know that we have, so let's say, some people that are aspiring adventure riders, like people that this, something like this is attractive to them, whether it be at this intensity or even, let's say, phasing their way in. You know, so how do you prepare, let's say, mentally, physically, prepare the bike? Like, what was it that you did besides, you know, spinning each other up and getting excited about it?
I did a bunch of stuff to the bike to get it ready. I knew it was going to be like a marathon, and I didn't know what we were going to encounter, you know? So I really took the whole thing apart, and I checked all the fasteners, and I got a good skid plate on there. We put the high fender kits on there so that if we got bogged up with mud. But basically getting my hands on everything. And the last thing I wanted to happen was like us to not complete it because of something dumb, you know, like something that could have been avoided in the garage. So yeah, I just, with my background and all that stuff, I just really prepped the bike till I felt good about it. And riding wise, I knew the bike was capable of it. So I just hoped that I was in good enough riding shape, and I was, so.
Yeah, for sure, same as Spencer. Good tires, skid plate, as far as mentally preparing for it, just kind of knowing your limits, how many passes you can do in a day. Making sure that you're going the right direction on some of these passes. Some of them are a lot more difficult if you're going up rather than coming down. So just putting putting the planning in is a big part of it, and leaving yourself enough time so you're not racing through and, you know, pushing it when you're tired and potentially crashing, damaging the bike, getting hurt.
Yeah, and we talked about that at the beginning too, was that it was a marathon, not a sprint, and we kind of had a talk with each other to like sort of talk each other down a little bit at the beginning, like, all right, we don't have to like set any land speed records here, like just because that was another thing, I didn't want to get knocked out because I dumped my bike in a creek or something dumb like that, which I did. but it ended up working out okay. But yeah, just being cautious, more cautious than I might be on a different ride.
So, you guys spent some time obviously prepping the bike and yourselves. Did you have any issues, any sort of bike issues or mechanical issues, anything out there that, of course you plan for everything, you hope, and sometimes things pop up, but did you really have any technical issues out there?
No technical issues with the bike. It was really solid. The only mechanical thing we had is like a flat tire. We were at the top of Imogene Pass, and there was a kind of dirt bike, and he kind of came over and looked at our adventure bikes and was just like, "What are you doing here on those?" And he left about 2 minutes before we did, and I was like, "I'm going to catch that guy and pass him to make a point." And it didn't quite have enough air pressure, and getting a pinch flat on a big embedded rock. So I think that was the only mechanical.
Yeah.
So it almost caught him up too. I was only like 20 yards behind him, and then I get this stupid flat.
Yeah.
Broke my heart.
And then we got to have about 10 Jeep groups stop by. You guys okay? You guys doing okay? Like, yes, we're fine. We're fine. I filled the entire battery box up with water. I dumped the thing in the creek, and it fired right back up. And I don't think we did any wrenching on the bikes besides that tire really at all. So yeah, they were bulletproof.
Do you guys have any favorites or anything that were like in terms of specific highlights, whether it be the pass or terrain or let's say surprises that you didn't expect? Because you watch somebody else's video and you kind of get an idea of what's going on, but what was the thing that was, say, one of the highlights that you would take away from the trip itself?
For me, it was Hancock Pass, just because that was one of the few that I hadn't done before, and we didn't do a ton of planning going into this. So we had done a couple other passes earlier in the day, and we kind of thought we knew the technical level of what we were gonna get to and stuff. And this was that the first day? Did we did Hancock? The first day? I think so. Yeah, and so we got about halfway up, and it became very clear that it was gonna be much more technical than we thought. And then it started pouring rain, and then there was a thunder and lightning storm. And so I had a moment where I dropped the bike, and I got it back up, but I'm just like staring at a rocky pitch, and it's all wet. And I was like, well, this is what you came here for, this is what you signed up for. And we shortly ran into two guys on dirt bikes that stopped us and were basically like, what are you guys doing here? And we were like, well, we're going to the top. And they're like, we were just at the top. You guys shouldn't go to the top. And he told us to turn around like 3 times, basically. We were like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
It's really tough. It's really rocky. You should probably turn around. No, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
No, you don't understand. No, we understand.
Yeah. But by the time we got to the top of that, I was taking it like 50 yards at a time. I was just like looking up, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get to that spot. Then I'm gonna get to that spot. But anyways, then we got to the top, and it was beautiful, and the sun came out, and like birds were singing and stuff, and it was awesome. So that was my highlight.
Yeah, I would say the Hancock day was probably the most challenging because it was pouring rain, and I almost got struck by lightning.
Yeah.
That was interesting. But Imogene, by far, was my favorite pass. If you guys are going to Colorado and you have time to do one pass, Imogene is awesome. It's a banger start to finish.
You ride out of like a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, well, I think the trail is over here, but
Yeah, you're like going
passing
through
these nice homes, $1 million homes, and the next thing you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, we went for tacos, and then we're following the GPS, and then, it's literally like a back alley, and there's garbage bins and stuff, and I'm like, dude, we're not going the right way. And then all of a sudden it turns into like the most epic ride. That was my favorite. It wasn't the most challenging. It wasn't the highest. It wasn't the most of anything, but just together, the scenery, the riding, it was just awesome.
I think you said, I don't know what the ghost in the machine is, but it's working.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I don't know what created the epic feel that it had, but it was by far my favorite.
well, there are moments on that part of that road where you just stop to take it all in too. Because I saw you guys do that, and I'm like, oh, I stopped there too.
Yeah.
Because it's just incredible, and you're like, I can't just let this pass me by. I have to stop and just soak it in for a second.
Yeah, you have the moments of realization. You're just riding along, and you're just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I can't believe we're here, we're doing it. You're just absolutely in the moment, and yeah, taking the time to stop and and realize that, right, as you look around and think this is like what percentage of people actually get to that location and can experience what you're experiencing.
So, one last question, guys. If we have some people here, whether they're experienced or not experienced riders, what advice would you give them to take on, maybe not necessarily this, but just to get out there and to adventure ride? I mean, this, this was designed with the idea of it being accessible. There are moments, as you were talking before, there are some of these passes that are easy. You don't have to knock them all out in 4 days. I know a couple people that have actually, they're chipping away at it. They're like, I'm going to do 2 or 3 this year and the 2 or 3 next year. I mean, take it at your own pace. Like you said, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And but what advice would you give somebody that's contemplating something like this in terms of how to prepare themselves and what they should do in order to get ready for this type of an adventure?
Well, the first thing I would say is just go do it. Don't think about it, but that's kind of like terrible advice in some ways. I think training's good, and I think going out on like bite-sized adventures first, like really helpful. Like go do a rundown somewhere that's like less consequential or something, But a lot of these passes are like accessible to a lot of small towns and stuff like that. So just kind of get your feet wet first and understand the bike and your limits and its limits, and then you'll have a much better time, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Just knowing your limits and going out, like I said, picking the direction specifically on these passes is a big deal. And you can do them as slow as you want. That's the only thing that get a bit more challenging as the speeds pick up. So as your comfort level increases, obviously your speed can increase too, but just making sure that you're kind of riding in your limits. I mean, pushing and having fun too. But yeah, smaller stuff closer to home, just to make sure that you're confident enough on the bike. Because these big, the bikes are big and heavy and they can be a bit daunting if you're not comfortable with them. So just being comfortable on the bike, getting some seat time in before you go.
We had actually talked, Spencer, that about some videos that you worked with some guys on about like local weekend adventures. And you're obviously from the area here. He's a local Pacific Northwesterner. What you mentioned? What are they? They're like a bite-sized like weekend adventure. ADV weekend. So that's something that you guys should just look online and check that out, because it's an opportunity for you to even just get your feet wet with some of these things. And varying skill levels. Not everything has to get to this, like to going and doing some of the things that you experienced here. But also he wrote a really cool article. I mean, we got lucky of the fact that Upshift, if you're familiar with the Upshift online magazine, beautiful magazine from the photography and the writing, and actually we talked a couple months ago, and he put out a really beautiful story that actually goes even into more detail on it. So please check those things out. But actually what I wanted to do is I wanted to open it up. If any of you had any questions, yes, please. I was hoping we had some questions.
Yeah, I'm really curious about what mods you added to the bike. In particular, you mentioned the tire. You changed what tire it is, if it's also tubeless or not, and the luggage setup too. How much luggage you had to carry?
Yeah, so I stayed tubeless, and I used Moto's Desert HT tires. What tires did you have on your bike?
Pirelli Scorpion Race, and I ran tubes. I'm not a huge fan of tubeless. I don't like changing them on the trail. If you do get a flat, you get a sidewall cut. With tubeless tires, you should be putting a tube in anyway if you can't plug it. And I don't like trying to seat tubeless tires on the trail with an electric compressor. So you can see in here, if you watch the videos, like the flat that I got, I pitched the tube, which may not have happened if I had the tubeless. 6 of one, half dozen of another. Yeah.
I can tell you guys, I ran stock, which in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have, but I ran stock tires right off the press launch. We dropped the pressure down to like 26, 27 PSI, which was actually recommended from Pirelli. And I had some moments where I wish I had a gnarlier tire, but then I also rode Cumberland Pass, and I was passing guys on GSs like they were standing still. So there's that compromise of what you want the tire for. But for this, you want it to perform off-road, at the highest level.
Yeah, and that's the like compromise that we made. We were giving up road capability for off-road capability, and we definitely weren't passing anybody on the pavement. You know, it was kind of sketchy on corners when it was wet and stuff, but off-road they were definitely the way to go. And then the luggage setup, I didn't have these panniers on there. I had this tank bag, and then I had some rackless luggage and a duffel bag across the back. And I had like everything, like all my tools, spare tubes in case something did happen, I could throw a tube in there. We were very self-sufficient, first aid kit and all that stuff. And then just a duffel on the back with basically a change of clothes because we were hitting hotels in between.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you're talking about making a decision which way to go, which way to go over the pass, what criteria did you use? How did you decide? What were you looking at to make that decision?
Google Earth. Yeah, literally, Spencer put the whole route together. I was super busy at work, and he had a little more downtime, so there was that much thought put into which direction we were doing it. I'm glad we
Well,
did
we
it.
just looked at a map and we were like, well, it makes sense if you were to go this way. But if you look at a map and you just go, oh, I'll just connect these dots, it's not great. And we ran into that a little bit.
Yeah, we didn't do very much research on the trails or to figure out which direction to do them. We just went, oh, hey, this is going to link up really well there. So it was like, this is the most efficient route. And I think we ended up running everything the hardest.
Yeah.
Like Hancock was the biggest difference from side to side,
Yeah.
I would say. So if you go up the way that we did, it was super rocky, it was pouring rain. The other side is it's almost like a bobsled run, and it's switchbacks and it's dirt, and it's just beautiful, absolutely stunning. But a lot easier to get up that way and go down the rocky side. And then Engineer.
Yeah. Engineer's like a 5 one way and like a 10 the other.
Yeah, you could get up Engineer the one direction with a 2-wheel drive minivan, and that's the only way we'd ever done it. So people were talking, oh, Engineer's a really tough trail. What are you talking about? And then we ran it Poughkeepsie Gulch. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's a whole different trail, and it was amazing. And I'm glad we did it the way that we did.
Yeah.
But if you're new to off-road and you're not sure skill level, you're not super confident on the bike, then those directions definitely are going to matter. And you want to put some thought into it before you go.
I can tell you that when I did the research, I did very similar to them. I Google Earth this thing like no tomorrow. And, it gets you like 20% there.
Yeah, yeah.
Not 80%, it's like 20% there. You're like, ah. And then you try to get the 3D in there as well. It's like, oh, well, maybe I have a better idea. But we were talking about this earlier. The routes that Jamie and I ended up taking compared to the routes that these guys took. I mean, I was like, man, I really wish I would have done that part, and I didn't. And they did some stuff quite differently. And then even the roads, like they came on the backside of this Corkscrew Gulch, we came the front side, and the day before it had just rained, and there was just a ton of wash off and gravel all over the trail. So we were struggling to even get up it. I mean, there were moments where we were like, once again, are we gonna have to turn around? We have to find a different way up. So, it's the road to hell is paved with best intentions or something like that. I don't screw it up, but you get the point. Like, you have your best intentions to plan, but man, at the end of the day, you're gonna get what you get, which is the beauty of the adventure as well. You put all that planning in. The last bit of advice that I would recommend is that we used Onyx. So Onyx is a really cool app. It's actually crowdsourced. I'd like more people to use it, which is why I promote it, because the more people that use it, then you actually have more crowdsourced information of people saying, hey, this road looks like this, and as they get updated in real time where this pass is closed. So Onyx is a great tool for that, and the cool part is most of these passes in Colorado are pretty, I'd say probably half of them are pretty well traveled, and so a lot of people would use them. But it's also one of those things that if you ever need advice on which way to go, we'll probably give it to you, but then it's going to be different by the time we get there. So there's a gentleman over here that had a question.
Oh,
Yes,
I
sir.
just wondered, first up, your video is excellent. Nice job with that. Second, how many days was this trip, and did you guys camp at all, or were you hoteling?
So Spencer put it together, And I was like, hey, are we bringing camping gear? And he said,
No, you said we should camp. People will think we're wusses if we don't.
and he was like, oh, I don't want to camp. And I was kind of fought him on it a little bit. And actually in the van, I don't know if you knew that, in the van I had all of my camping gear.
I knew you would do it.
Because I was hoping to convert you.
I brought all my camping stuff too.
Oh, did you?
I had it in
In
the
your
truck.
truck.
Now they're figuring that out
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
which is actually.
Yeah. So I was hoping we would have a last minute change and that we would end up camping. But we did this, what was it, 3.5 days?
Yeah, 3.5.
3.5. So like one day we had 7 passes, and by the time we got that 7th pass done,
You're
there's
ready
no
to
way.
go to a hotel.
There's no way. So we went to.
And we're soaking wet a lot of the time, you know, and like we had good gear, but it's like after
Doesn't
10
matter.
river crossings and all, like you run into rain like twice and then it's sunny out and all this stuff. So it's like every night we had these incredibly disgusting hotel rooms. It was just like a drying rack everywhere of like all of our exploded gear and stuff. And yeah, so we stayed in hotels.
There is something that's nice about being able to take a shower and to know, we were saying this earlier, and also you know you need to get your rest because it's tough. And if you get a good night's sleep, it's amazing how you, the next day you're like, you just hit the reset button.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes with camping, you never know what's gonna happen that night. You know, you might have a horrible night of sleep, you might get rain, you might have a bear wake you up in the middle of the night, whatever. So I did the same. We didn't pack camping gear. So I'm like, I know what I'm gonna feel like at the end of the night.
Yeah.
So, but you were asking about some of the other mods, and there was actually a couple cool things that Spencer had done to the bike as well. Specifically, that's a personal preference of yours between the bars
And the stake pegs?
The stake pegs, yeah. Talk about that a little bit, because I think that's an interesting thing, especially for those a lot of people that aren't familiar with that in this type of riding.
Yeah, so I did a couple things like they were a little bit more advanced, like the flex bars. It's like a dirt bike thing. They just have a whole lot of flex to them. If you come up here afterwards, they've actually got like elastomers in here, and so they're like shock absorbers. So that's a preference of mine, along with like the grip setup. And then I also have stake pegs on here, which are for the back of my boots so that I can get locked in onto the bike. And then also anytime I'm going uphill, it takes all the pressure off of my arms, and I'm all locked in with my feet. So on a really strenuous ride like this, it was multiple days. I think those two differences alone probably made the ride a lot more enjoyable for me. So, and I know, Corey, you had stake pegs. No, or you didn't.
I ordered them. They showed up the day that I was leaving, so I didn't put
Classic.
them on. And I was like, I'll be fine. And then the day we did Imogene was like the last pass of the day.
Yeah.
And we had done 7 passes that day. And because you're up and down, my forearms were so blown out. Spencer was so far ahead of me because I was just like, I couldn't hang on anymore. And my hands were numb. And I was so choked that I didn't throw them in the van and install them when we got to Delta when we started. But yeah, they're huge. They're a game changer.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with them, check them out. They're a couple $100.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could say from
Stick
stake
pegs?
pegs, when you get up and take a look at the bike and snap a picture of it. And just for those of you that aren't as experienced in this type of riding, it's because your body position and specifically your leg, you're supposed to be hanging. You're not sitting with your feet flat on the pegs necessarily. You're leaning it back, and going from road to dirt, I find myself getting a little lazy at times as well, and that makes your mind lock back into it. It's like, okay, I know where I need to be. Because when your weight is shifted back a little bit, you can even, when you find those big open stretches of dirt road and you want to have a little bit of fun playing at all, you can. But I think the key is that you don't want to beat yourself up. In hindsight, I probably would have liked to at least add something like the bars to take a lot of that vibration up, because I had the same thing. I had forearm pump at the end of the day, and it's like, and probably some of the images up there is just a big bottle of Advil. I went to like Costco and got the industrial size, and it was 4 in the morning, I pre-gamed, and then 4 in the evening in order to get ready. So, any other mods that you made to really help the bike or get it prepared for yourself?
The skid plate.
Yeah.
That skid plate, if you look at the bottom of it, there's some serious damage, especially around the kickstand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, and I mean, Corey makes the skid plates or whatever, so part of this is testing for it, but without something like that, I think it could have been the trip.
Could have been. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for navigation, and this is something to bring up, I mean, you know, there's a lot of different ideas of how to navigate. People put their cell phone on there, they put a Garmin and.
Or a Trail Tech
Or use a
Voyager
Trail
Pro.
Tech. And so, I mean, tell me, what's the advantages of utilizing something like that?
So the biggest advantage of the Voyager Pro and what we use a whole lot on all of our rides, but especially this one, is buddy tracking. So I can see where Cory is and Cory can see where I am.
Yeah.
So if we split up at all, or if he's riding ahead or I'm riding ahead and you take a cutoff or something like that, you don't have to stop. You know which way they went. So then you can follow behind them and stuff. So we use that on all of our rides, but it's super important for rides like this, especially when I was getting like kind of clapped out on some places, and same with you, then you can see where they are on your map. You can see if they're moving or not. You can see which direction they're going. So I would say that the maps are great, and we also used a GeoPDF for the Alpine loop. So we took a paper map and put it on the GPS basically. It pins the corners of it so you can see your location on top of that paper map. And it's a really detailed map. So between the buddy tracking and that, I can't recommend the Voyager Pro enough, obviously, but.
Yeah, I can speak from experience that when I was doing this with Jamie, that there was a moment where, and it happens, when you're riding together with somebody for a couple days, and at some point you're in the rhythm and you're starting to take off. And I had this moment like, man, I'm really, I'm in it, this is a great ride. You know, I'm 30 minutes later, I kept looking behind me and I thought I saw them behind me, and then I realized that I was pretty far away from them. I had no idea where they were. I had no idea if I was on the wrong one, the right road, the wrong one. They didn't know where they were at. So I think something like that, specifically when you figure out someone to go with, which is the other piece I would recommend. One of the very first things I learned about enduro riding is you never do it alone. Like, some of these guys, they get out there and do some of this stuff alone. And I mean, like this sort of thing, to have somebody with you, to have somebody that you trust that you can go ride, that not only is a kindred spirit to take on a challenge, or that when things go south, if they do, that cool, calm head is also really important as well. And so, I mean, it's good that you guys have each other to be able to do that. But any other questions? Yes.
Is there anything that you wish you would have prepped for or packed or wish you would have done on the trip?
The sped pegs, honestly, like it really, the end of that one day, I couldn't use my hands. So that was a big thing. It was pissing me off because they were home. I should have just thrown them in. I could have been, they take 10 minutes to install, and I was just being lazy. Other than that.
The kickstand. I got the right length kickstand.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So there's a change, so I don't want to.
No, that was an early production of the kickstands. The bike would lean over a little too far, and so they, in fact, mine was one
It
of the ones.
wouldn't lean over far enough.
Oh, it was stand up
It's
too
too
tall. That's
tall.
right, yeah.
So it would, if
Yeah.
you had to find like the perfect spot.
That, you had a nice divot, that's right. But I had an issue with it as well early on. And it was a running change, so they changed that, so.
So
And
I had made two different like side stands, and we were gonna try the two different lengths. And Spencer got the one that worked, and I got one that sucked.
Yeah, so like every time we stopped, I was like, man, this kickstand really making the trip. And you're like, shut up, shut up.
You had a question?
Yeah, it was about how many times you mentioned you felt the bike over. How many times did you damage anything to the bike, or what did it? It seems like it all broke.
No, I mean, I didn't break really anything. The water pump guard on this side took some good hits. Like I said, the skid plate took some good hits, but with the right kind of protection, you know, it's really fine. You know, I don't think I broke anything.
Your crash bars got bent to this side, and then they got bent to that
Yeah,
side.
you just gotta drop it, keep it even. You gotta even it out, you know.
It's actually pretty amazing. I probably, I don't know how many times you guys dropped, but I lost count. Which, that's something you just gotta get over. It's gonna happen, right? So you just have to realize it's gonna happen. And there's a saying, if you don't drop the bike, you weren't trying, you know? So get over it, but make sure you have the protection there. Only thing I ever broke is I broke the tip of a lever off. That's it, because I actually have my handguards in the wrong spot. And my lever was poking out, and I just broke the tip off. It still was rideable, but it's a big deal to make sure all of that's protected well. And the water pump is a big one, for sure.
Handguards too. The OEM handguards being plastic.
Yeah.
If you're dropping the bike off-road, then you are risking snapping the levers. We were on a ride last fall, and one of the guys I was with dropped his bike and he broke the front brake lever, and we were at the top of a very steep mountain pass on a single track, and that was absolutely miserable trying to deal with that with, unless you're carrying spare levers. But if you just get good handguards, then you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, even I actually ran the OEM guards, which is just like a little aluminum curb that goes over the front. I had no issues. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that's out there that can accomplish that, but I actually do pack a couple levers.
I do now.
Yeah, I pack a couple levers because it's like it weighs nothing, and to your point, it could make for a real miserable time if you don't have something like that. So, any other questions? Well, hey, appreciate all the asking. And this is part of why we're doing this. Like I said before, is to hopefully educate, inspire, get you motivated to whether it's taking on a challenge like the Dirty Dozen or doing something yourself locally. Yes, please.
You mentioned ADV weekend. Are you talking about the Tour Tech one in Leavenworth end of June, or a different one?
No, we do. I do a video series called ADV Weekend, and they're like 72-hour adventures.
Okay.
So it's basically like a bite-sized. We call them bite-sized PDRs.
Yeah.
So for people that can't get a bunch of time off work. But yeah, you can check it out on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to get started on stuff like that. I mean, it could be daunting unless you have the time and the energy in getting all the way out there. But the amazing part about this part of the country is you guys have all of this right in your backyard. I mean, it's some incredible riding right here. And they'll probably be able to point you in the right direction of some of this as well. So, but hey, we'll be here till 8 o'clock, and if you have any other questions one-on-one, feel free to come up and ask, take a look at the bike, ask questions about it. We definitely have different experiences in terms of how we approach this, but it's one of those things that, I remember getting to the very top. In fact, that whole video series that I did with Jamie, like I didn't narrate or talk until the very end. And it's like exhausting and emotional all at the same time when you end up hitting that last stretch. So it's an opportunity, I think, that I want other people to experience and share as well. And I would rather not just be seen in coffee shops. I mean, I hate that, but if I see adventure bikes that actually aren't dirty, my DesertX is about as clean as yours right now.
I was gonna say I cleaned it up for this event. It's in good shape.
But that's because it's being used and it's actually part of its character that you're actually developing with this. So anyway, let's give these guys a round of applause.